Well, ba far uasal Jim fargo han jaspar kuan agus a ban céile Joan Foster so bhil ma cobrón a janú le Joan agus an Chile a leg Jim. Jim, I suppose, came into my consciousness way back around the black taxis. And the black taxis were set up in the first instance in 1969. And Leo Martin, the late Leo Martin, actively supported by the late Brón Keenan, went off to London and got an old black taxi, and out of that grew the People's Taxis. And Jim came in sometime after that, but he was in the leadership of that organization, West Belfast Taxi Association, the Black Hacks, People's Taxis, during the time when they were put under huge pressure, huge harassment by the RUC, by the British Army, the British state, the Unionists in the limited time they were in power at that time. And he stood up to it, and it was, I mean, this wasn't just your normal aggression. This was, 8 taxi men killed in the course of that. Homes bombed, homes attacked, offices attacked, and they persisted. They refused to be intimidated. They fought the system, and it wasn't just unions, paramilitaries. It was suave, mohair-suited British ministers as well. And they persisted in Mathilde Paddy, Mulvanna and others. Out of that came the hub down in King Street, the black taxi that, so from being skirting through barricades and finding ways of getting people home and being a cooperative movement and so on. And I know all these things changed. So Jim's focus was very much on, I suppose, the social economy. He was fairly central to Conway Mill. He was chair of the Conway Mill. Again, Father Des, and I hope you always be mindful of mentioning names, leaving people out. But again, it was subject to huge pressure, withdrawal of funding, political vetting, unless you were deemed to be safe and, I suppose, vetted by the Catholic Church or hierarchy, you didn't get funding, which as a taxpayer or a ratepayer even, you were worthy of. So infamously in the mill, they withheld funding from a creche. But again, look at the mill today. It's a huge hub of education, of small business, of enterprise. So that's the nature of it. And then, there were so many people doing so much. The West Belfast Task Force, Belfast Community Council. Jim was involved also in the effort, which is now coming decades later to fruition, around the development of St. Comgall School down in Divis, and that's going to be quite a project. And I know you quite rightly take great joy from this, and you deserve some credit for it as well. The changing landscape of West Belfast, particularly around these iconic buildings which are going up, and mostly very progressive social economic projects, as well as your ordinary decent small trader and the slightly larger traders here. And Jim was central to all of that. A very committed Republican. He was liaison for Sinn Féin with people in Australia, with the network of solidarity groups in Australia. He was patron, if that's the right word, of the casement group, and so on. So he'll be missed. He has been ill for some time, and because I'm up until I stood down from the Dáil, out of the city so much, you don't see your friends, you don't see your core group or people that you work with for a very, very long time. But the odd time when I bumped into Jim, despite his illness, he was positive, he was understated, and he was looking ahead. So it'd be a huge loss, of course, to Joan and the clan, but anyone who worked with him as well.